So based off the likes of many YouTubers before me, I really wanted to start a thing where I draw and kind of talk about what I'm drawing and why I'm drawing it, and kind of my relationship with this situation. And in this case, I decided to draw one of my favorite artists, Mitski. She was number 2 in my Spotify Wrapped, right after Rena. And even then, I'm not sure how 100% accurate that is, because my Spotify premium free trial ended up running out. And I was like, you know what? Because of this, I think I'm just gonna go and stop that subscription and just watch on YouTube. Cheers to both of them, though. I love both of them very equally and very, very much. My introduction to Mitski honestly is very, very basic and very, very common. People on Twitter actually introduced me to her, and I found out about her when she was promoting Be the Cowboy and Nobody. And in the midst of that, I started listening to Nobody. I went back and heard Francis Forever and remembered that, and just kind of continuously listened to her discography, because I had a sense that I was going to like her, but it was going to take time. But I definitely did enjoy her music at the moment and did connect to it and a lot of what she said. I was getting out of a lot of old music and I wanted to listen to newer music. At that time, the music I listened to was a lot more poppy and a lot more like Running in the Fields, kind of like Strawberry Blonde, except with different meanings and not as relatable in my eyes. I think my ability to relate with her is very much one of, I want to feel like I am a person. I want to feel like I belong. I want to be a part of something. But there's always something otherwise telling me that I can't. That I don't deserve to feel joy. Or I don't deserve to talk to someone this way or be like someone this way. And a part of me still hoping, but another part of me just kind of knows that at the moment it's unattainable. And I think it might be because, we both have very similar racial backgrounds. We're both sapphic. So I think that comes to part of it. And I think her touch with mental health and mental illness is something that I kind of feel. And I think it hits really hard during quarantine. I mean, the reason why I decided to draw Nobody, or her scene in Nobody here specifically, is because I think the way she captures the idea of loneliness is so real on here, especially in the end. I think if you ask anyone who's ever sang a cover or karaoke to Nobody, that the ending is probably the most stressful part, because all you do is just sing Nobody a million times. And if you think about it, it's really an expression and this self-realization, the more you sing it and say it, that it's you admitting that at the moment nobody's there for you. And I think a lot of the times it's hard because for a lot of people it might not be true, and then for a lot of people it is, and then for a lot of people it might not be true but it feels like it is. And it's something that I always kind of kept in mind. It's something that I definitely felt during this quarantine. My favorite song from her is Townie, in which I think this is one of the many times where I kind of differentiate her meaning to the song with my meaning to the song. But her meaning to the song, from what I remembered, is her picturing how kids in the suburbs live, and a moment where they kind of feel rebellious, and her kind of picking fun of it. Whereas when I heard it, I'm kind of like, this is who I wish I was as a person, someone who was a lot more rebellious and had a lot more fun and just kind of avoided all of the familial expectations that were dawned on me and just listened to my body and what my body wants. And I think Townie's also the song that when I first listened to it was one where I was like, this is an amazing artist. Hands down, I was like, oh my gosh, she slaps so much. This is such a good song. hands down my favorite. And the more I listened to her music from there, the more I really got to love it. And I think the more sad I became and the more I listened to her lyrics and kind of related to it, the more I really did feel that connection. The idea of loneliness, depression, feeling like an outsider, I feel like it is a very universal experience, but for her, it does touch a lot on notes of her sexuality and her race and how that definitely plays a part in it. And obviously, I could see how certain things can be seen otherwise, but I do think that this experience is a very real experience for her, and for me is something that I can relate to. Obviously, I do think that for many people who are women of color and who are sapphic, they might not feel the same way. I'm really at this moment talking about my own personal experience, but for me, I think there are times where it does hit personal notes, and I think maybe it might be quarantine, and maybe it's because like my life has really shifted from where it was in the past. It really gave me time to really think and analyze it, and as much as that did dig me in a really, really deep hole of like, wow, like to me, I'm super lonely, to me, I'm like a horrible person and inhuman, I kind of grown to kind of explore that and be like, why am I like this? And is it just like a bunch of pressure pushed into me? And obviously, like in Mitski's music videos, it is something that she does encourage for exploration, and even though it doesn't really show in her songs, it does kind of make you take a step back and look at the words and be like, okay, why is it like this? And I think she does it in such like a really beautiful way, and the way she forms her wordings and the way she does her music videos and the way she plays with sound and her music is very, very, very beautiful. And it is a very specific sound. I think for Mitski, if you listen to a Mitski song, you know it's a Mitski song. She has a very similar voice and a very similar theme. She doesn't really range outside of that. She doesn't go happy. She doesn't go past like the emotional sadness and depression and loneliness and trauma that she kind of expresses that many people have felt before. And that's kind of what makes her unique to her. No, she doesn't really range outside of the really, honestly, pretty wide range she has now. But I think that if she kind of goes outside of that, it doesn't make her her, and it doesn't make her music her music, and it kind of takes away that power. And I think she does have the capability to go out and totally rock it. I mean, I do not know how like a poppy bubblegum Mitski song will sound like, but I have no doubt that if she does it, she'll rock it. But for me, it's just kind of a thing where it's like Mitski has this brand of kind of the world is horrible, I am horrible, or I am seen as horrible to the world, and her ability to expand to that is true, but I don't think she ever will have the ability to kind of water down her music to anything electronic or anything poppy or anything like about love without any pain. Like if she writes a song about love that's a very happy love, I think she would write about it and how much it hurts and aches. Or she'll write about it where she talks about the complexities of it. Or she'll write about it where she feels like she's so happy but this doesn't feel real. Every single Mitski song has a deeper meaning. And I think for a lot of other artists, that is very true. It does have a deeper meaning. But for her, it kind of goes in another level of things that like you might not even think about or experience, or like not experience, I'm sorry, consider. And I think that is so cool and so creative and very well done and intelligent of her. And that's what makes her very much her. And as I said, I think from a very lyrical, like straightforward perspective, you're not going to understand. But when you see how like she does her music and how every song she has relates to each other and how she keeps a consistent theme, you could see it change. Think about like Strawberry Blonde, right? It's about yearning. Yes, from a very basic level, you could see it as a song about yearning. But if you think about it deeper, and I got this from a TikTok, but I do agree and kind of thought this before, it is kind of yearning for either like this white man who will not see her as like a person and it's unattainable to her, which is very similar to like Your Best American Girl, which if you don't think this is true, just like look at the music video. It is right there and very, very obvious about what that song is about. Like when I listened to it, there was no doubt what it was about. But with Strawberry Blonde, someone interpreted as the strawberry blonde person that Mitski sees is who she wants to be. Not someone who is unattainable that she loves, but someone that's unattainable that she wants to become and knows that she can't become. And that is something that, number one, I do 100% see in the lyrics, and number two is something that I don't think people who can relate to it could see it in a very surface level, but people who do see it, and she does do it in a very beautiful way. When you take a look at her themes of being separated from others or being seen as an other, to kind of witness that. Your Best American Girl shows it a lot more obviously. Nobody does it very, very obviously, where she talks about loneliness and depression and isolation in a very, very direct way. But, you know, sometimes songs like Strawberry Blonde, I'm going to go back to that example, or probably songs like I Will, which isn't really that obvious because when she talks about the meaning about I Will, it is literally a love song that she wanted to write about, but she had no one to write it to. So it was songs about what she wished other people would say to her. Which, first of all, I do that a lot, but, and maybe that's just, like, a sad thing that only two of us feel, but, like, I don't know, this is, like, this secret universal experience that everyone has, but that feeling of wanting to be loved and just not having anyone who loves you in that way, and just kind of imagining that experience, it sucks, and it's really sad. But it's just like, you would never get that from a surface level. But kind of, as I said, continuing on with the theme of like what she portrays and what she puts out, it's there. And obviously, like sometimes the songs are not that way. Townie is one example. She said that she used it as a way to kind of poke fun at people in the suburbs. She travels a lot. She resides in New York City. So that's probably not the life that she has, but I think it can be, if you use the theme, something that's different, where it's kind of that feeling of like wanting that freedom or yearning for that freedom of being the suburban kid who could do whatever they want. And maybe this is me reaching, but it is kind of what I see and witness for myself and in myself and how I interpreted the song. And I think the more you continue going through her music and going through like what she stands for and how she kind of writes everything and does everything, things become more and more obvious in a very, very beautiful and sad and lonely way. I will say that it's odd because I do look for her as a sense of escapism from sad, because she and her music is probably the most consistent and present company I had that fully understands how I'm feeling at that moment, or how I can fully interpret as being like that at the moment. And obviously, like, seeing a woman in the music scene, seeing an Asian woman in the music scene, seeing an LGBT Asian woman in the music scene, it's something that is more commonly seen now, but isn't super common to see in general. So I think that experience and her doing that and being that representation that I need, as much as I'm not a huge fan of going too deep into representation politics, does help with a lot of the ways that people interpret her and people can relate to her. I think that it is very common to talk about mental health in music, but not in such a deep, gut-wrenching way as Mitski. I mean, I've personally never seen it, and I personally never related to it as much. It's really a wild experience. And it's really interesting because initially when I first listened to her, like, I definitely was just checking out a new artist who I thought was cool. You know, this is someone whose song I saw on Adventure Time, but I didn't know who she was. And Adventure Time is very notably seen as one of those songs, one of those shows where they write their own songs mostly. But I knew about Frances Forever, and I love Frances Forever. And Nobody was a song that is very common to look at, and I was like, oh, it's a cool poppy tune. I could relate to her being lonely, but I don't think I ever felt it until times when I was out of the city and not really able to travel as much because of my lack of access to being able to travel in general. And then even more so during quarantine, when no one was allowed to go out, and I just felt so lonely and miserable. So just kind of having someone who's like, especially, well, like dealing with themes like in class of 2013 of like, oh God, I need to go home, and I'm hoping that I'll get properly cared for just this once, and I promise that in the future I will definitely be able to go and do things, missing people that I care for, desperately wanting someone to be there for me at all times, and someone who would love me unconditionally. It was all there, and it was all hitting really, really, really hard. So I think if there is ever a moment of feeling lonely and feeling like no one was ever there for me, it's like this music was, and this music understood. And obviously you can't just stick with the music and that's it, but it was honestly what I had at the moment. I'm going to sidebar really quick here. I color picked Mitski's skin tone, but when I was shading it in, I don't know why, to me, I'm like looking at my own like skin tone, and I'm like, I would never like color my own skin tone the way the color picker would, and we're about the same shade, and I think it might just be because of like the extra shadows that the photo had for her. So what I did was that I made the base a lot, not a lot, but like a good amount lighter than what she actually had, and then used all of the other shades that I had to kind of add depth and shadow. I'm not really used to doing that at all with art. just because I don't really color, but I felt like I should here just because I wanted to add more stuff to it and just kind of made it clear that it's Mitski during the Nobody music video. And I think that one of the biggest things in the Nobody music video is the color scheme, which is why I did it. So I just wanted to add the heads up. Like, her skin did get lighter, but I did whatever I can to make sure that like there's extra depth and all of that as well. I was just kind of being realistic here, and just like her skin tone is not white, but it's definitely not as dark as it was interpreted. So I just made it a little bit lighter just for the sake of it kind of making sense to the paper than it was to like the color drop. I think this color drop thing that I did, I've done this before, but I don't really draw real life people more than I do art. Now I understand why the Conan Gray color drop thing made sense. So that's why I made her like a tiny bit lighter, but just note that I was also basing it off of like my own skin tone and like how it probably realistically is, and how I've seen her in many album covers, many concerts, not in person. The times when she was performing always overlapped with me having something else to do, and it always sucked. But yeah, I just wanted to get that heads up. But I mean, I never realized how important music is and relating to music is until like there was a moment where I decided not to listen to her and felt absolutely miserable, because it was also a time where I was at home, didn't really have like continuous support or continuous support system, and a lot of my coping mechanisms were not with me at the moment. And I definitely improved a lot since like a lot of this stuff that I had to deal with, I think, as a teenager, but kind of like the evolution of it and me not having the resources that I used to have definitely put a toll on me. And then it just made me end up almost completely fully depending on her music to cope. So not having that for like the period of time that I did really sucked. However, I ended up getting through it. I started listening to her again, and do I cling on to it as much of like a coping mechanism? No. And yes, I think I do still use her music to cope, but I do try to do other things and do like other forms of thinking just to have better stuff, because I do think that you can't just have one thing as your only coping mechanism. I think you really need to reach out to community and get the help you need. You need to feel like you're not alone when you're struggling with loneliness. You need to put yourself up there and find community, and I promise you there's so many people who are going to be just like you, and so many people who will relate to how you relate to. Because like, think about it, someone's literally writing music about the sadness and loneliness that you feel that you could relate to. So definitely it has to relate to other people too, because Mitski does have a lot of people listening to her on Spotify, has a lot of people buying her albums, and has a lot of people going to her concerts and buying her merch. This is very much a universal experience. So find people who can understand and relate to it and form community. At this moment, I am near done with the video. So what I'm gonna say is thank you so much for listening to me speak, and I hope you enjoyed the drawing and what I have to say. Not everything is gonna be this heavy. And thank you so much for watching and listening.